It's expensive. It's overvalued. You probably want to stay away from it.
Wait, what? MarketBeat's Chris Markoch has been a big fan of Palantir for years, even raving about the company's recent new growth.
They're partnering with Palantir to launch R37. Palantir is also partnering with the private defense contractor Anduril, and that's where the warfare of the future is moving.
He's also quieting some investors' fears over recent insider selling.
It's not insider trading. What's more interesting is when you see congressional leaders who are buying the stock.
So why is Chris telling some investors to stay away? Let's dive in. Chris, so great to have you back on to talk about one of your favorite companies, Palantir. We've talked about this stock quite a bit, but since we last talked in early February, there has been a lot of moves in Palantir stock.
Certainly has been. Right after you and I talked, which I think you and I were mentioning before we got on, it was like around the 4th of February, stock continued to go higher, hit its all-time high of around $125. That was on February 18th. And then the bottom fell out a little bit. Stock fell about 40%, got down to around $75 a share. And since then, it's bounced back. It's up above about $95 per share as we're talking this morning. And that's been on because of the string of a lot of different contracts that Palantir's been signing on both the defense side of the business and also the commercial side of the business.
Yeah, that's what we really want to dive into today is all of these new developments for Palantir and what it could mean for this stock's future right now in the short term and long term. So let's start with one of the newest contracts that they have with R1.
Right. So this is an interesting contract for the company because R1 is a company that is focused on trying to help healthcare organizations, hospitals, etc., become more disciplined and more efficient in their financial operations. And they're partnering with Palantir to launch R37, which is an AI-driven lab that's focused on improving healthcare financial operations. Dovetails really nicely with what we're hearing about in the public sector with an organization like Doge that's focusing on governmental efficiency. This is a private sector initiative that's really trying to tackle any waste and inefficiency within the healthcare system. And that's what this partnership is intended to do.
How big of a financial impact does this new contract have for Palantir?
The terms of the deal weren't announced, but here's something to think about that came out in the announcement is that administrative healthcare costs account for about 40% of U.S. hospital expenses. So that kind of tells you the scope of the problem. And like I said, the terms of the partnership weren't really announced, but it just tells you that this is a significant issue that has to be tackled.
Yeah, and definitely a significant growth area for Palantir as well.
Correct.
So that is an exciting news for investors that might be a little bit behind some of the recent uptick we've seen, but there's another big defense announcement that also has investors interested right now.
I wrote a couple of weeks ago that Palantir was partnering with Archer Aviation, which is the flying car, the eVTOL company, and they're helping Archer with to make their manufacturing processes a little bit more efficient. But Palantir is also partnering with the private defense contractor Anduril, and Anduril is sort of the leader right now in drone technology, which what we were seeing in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, drones are being used perhaps even more than fighter jets and perhaps more effectively than fighter jets. And that's where the warfare of the future is moving. And Palantir is getting into this space by partnering with a company like Anduril.
How big of a part of the business is this for Palantir?
Well, right now, defense contracts still make up more than 50% of the company's revenue, but the commercial side is closing that gap pretty fast. And just the fact that we're having a conversation where we're looking at the two at almost parity is pretty impressive. But should investors be concerned about Palantir falling behind in the government spending category? And I think the answer is clearly no, especially with this partnership that they're developing with Archer and Anduril. They're positioning themselves well for the types of technology that the Defense Department's going to be looking for.
And I think Washington insiders are onto that a little bit, Chris. Let's
Mhm.
talk about all of the congressional investing into this company right now.
In January and February, we saw, I think, 3 or 4 different US congressional leaders buying Palantir stock. The most recent that we show on MarketBeat was around February 12th, which is interestingly enough, right about the time when Palantir was hitting that all time high around 125. And one of those congressional leaders was one of our favorites, Marjorie Taylor Greene, buying the stock again. But here's the thing, I've always said there's a lot of people that get excited about Palantir and they talk about people that are selling Palantir stock, the insiders that are selling Palantir stock. Again, I was looking on MarketBeat, and a lot of the recent sales that have been happening have been part of pre-planned stock trades. So these are trades that these insiders committed to and announced back in 2024, and they're being executed now. It's not insider trading. It's not a plan to, where they're trying to dump the stock because they have news that we don't have as retail investors. It's just part of a pre-programmed sell. What's more interesting is when you see congressional leaders who are buying the stock, and these are congressional people who probably know where some of this defense contractor money is probably going to be spent.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And one of the reasons why Palantir is one of the AI stocks that so many
Yeah.
investors are watching right now for success in the future. If you're looking for other AI stocks set to take off soon, check out MarketBeat's free premium report on the 10 best AI stocks for 2025. You can scan the QR code or click the link in the description of this video to get that full free report on marketbeat.com right now. Chris, I want to dive into a little bit deeper just how big Palantir is getting. It has another new milestone on the stock market right now to talk about.
It really does. So on March 24th, Palantir started trading as part of the S&P 100. Now, this wasn't a big surprise. People knew that this was going to be coming. But it's another example of what I've said before is the next leg up for Palantir is not really going to be led by the retail investors. They already did the heavy lifting when Palantir was trading below $10 and trading in the 20s. This next leg up is going to be led by the institutions who right now are getting to the point where they can argue valuation all they want, but they're going to need to have Palantir in their portfolios and in their clients' portfolios, and they're not going to have really much of a choice but to buy the stock, which I think is a little bit about what you see happening right now and why the stock's gone from 75 to 95. Yes, the company is growing. Yes, the company is earning contracts, but really the significant point is institutions don't really have much choice anymore, but they're going to have to buy the stock.
That's so interesting. I feel like we've covered so
Yeah.
many areas of different people buying this stock right now. We have congressional leaders, we have the institutions
Yeah.
buying. Now let's dive into what are the analysts saying about the future of this company.
For all the talk of valuation, what I've been noticing when you look at the analyst forecasts on MarketBeat is that all of the analysts continue to raise their price targets on Palantir. And even the most bearish analysts, if that's what we want to call it, are raising their price targets so that the floor for Palantir is going up. So I just don't see a lot of support to say you're going to see Palantir nosedive, much lower than that 75 that we've got, because most of the analysts just aren't supporting that kind of price action anymore. They're setting a floor that says, no, Palantir is going to be probably around that $75 levels of floor. And we even saw Loop Capital on March 13th. They gave Palantir a price target of $125. And that's even more bullish than Dan Ives of Wedbush, who's been one of the biggest Palantir bulls, who has a price target of 120. So again, I think the analysts may be saying one thing, but certainly their ratings and their price targets are suggesting something else when it comes to Palantir.
And I think what you talked about of some investors out there just waiting for a big drop because of
Right.
how fast this company grew. And when you look at the 52-week range that Palantir is trading at, I can understand that fear. You've got a $20 to
Right.
$125 range. That's a really big range and a lot of really quick growth for this company. How do investors kind of manage a company like this that's seen so much growth and some pretty big swings along the way?
I think the one thing that I would remind investors is If you're looking at Palantir in the short term, so less than a year, it's expensive. It's overvalued. You probably want to stay away from it. That there, I said it. Now, if you're a long-term investor, somebody who's looking at this as a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year investment, I don't think you really care about the valuation. I don't think you're looking at the price to earnings ratio and getting all concerned about that. I think what you're seeing is a company that continues to grow their top line aggressively, not only sequentially, but you're also seeing it grow year over year. They're now profitable, they're growing their free cash flow. All of the long-term metrics suggest that Palantir is going to grow. Now, does that mean you're not going to see any dips in prices? Of course you are. No stock goes up, forever. But I think if you take the long-term view of Palantir, you got to think about where that stock is likely to be in 5 years and the trajectory of where the country is going and just where Palantir is positioned on the defense side and where it's positioning itself on the commercial side. Unless we see the AI story absolutely tank, I don't see any reason why Palantir is not going to get higher and significantly higher in the next 5 to 10 years. And that's what you have to be looking at if you're a long-term investor.
All some really good points for investors to consider. Let us know what you think about Palantir. Are you in this company for the long term, or are you just riding the short term hills and valleys for this stock? Let us know what you think in the comments. And be sure to check out our other Palantir video as well, where we dived into a little bit more of what was going on before that all-time high in February. Thanks again for joining us, everyone. And as always, happy investing.